The shipyard floated in space like a giant metal city. It orbited around a huge gas planet called Thel 9. Inside the shipyard, over 200 warships sat waiting for repairs. Some had broken engines. Others had weapons that would not fire. A few had life support systems that kept failing. Admiral Vextar stood in the command center. His four eyes watched another ship limp into the docking bay. Smoke came from its thruster ports. The Admiral's skin changed from blue to dark purple. This color showed anger in his species. He had every right to be angry. For 8 months his fleet had been falling apart. Every single day, 7 million credits disappeared from his budget. The money went to emergency repairs, new parts, and ships that could not fight. The Valoran Empire was losing a war against its own machines. Another one? Asked his assistant. The cruiser Veltara, Vextar said. That makes 5 ships this week. The Admiral had tried everything. He brought in the best Valoran engineers. They could not find the problem. He hired experts from other alien species. They failed too. His people replaced entire engine systems. The failures continued. They upgraded all the computer software. Nothing changed. The problem seemed random. One day a destroyer's engine would overheat. The next day a frigate's weapons would explode during a test. There was no pattern anyone could see. The engineers ran 1 million tests. Their advanced computers analyzed everything. But the ships kept breaking down. In a small room far from the command center, Jiho pulled on his work gloves. He was 32 years old with dark hair and oil stains on his jumpsuit. He came from Earth, a planet the Velarans had just made contact with a year ago. The Velarans thought humans were primitive. Earth had just started traveling to other stars. Compared to species that had been in space for thousands of years, humans were like children. The Valorans hired humans only for the worst jobs, cleaning, carrying, simple manual work. Jiho did not mind. He needed the job. Earth's economy was struggling after first contact with aliens. Many human workers had lost their jobs when cheap alien products flooded the market. Working in a Valoran shipyard paid well even if the aliens treated him like dirt. Ready? Asked Hana. She was 24, smart, and quick with languages. She had learned to speak Valoran in just 6 months. Now she worked as Jiho's assistant and translator. Let's go, Jiho said. What's today's job? Hana checked her data pad. Cleaning coolant tanks on Destroyer Bay 7. Jiho picked up his toolbox. It was an old metal box from Earth, battered and covered in stickers. Inside were simple tools, wrenches, screwdrivers, a basic multimeter. Nothing fancy. They walked through the massive shipyard. Valoran technicians rushed past them. These aliens were tall and thin with smooth blue skin and 4 arms. They carried advanced diagnostic tools that could scan a ship's entire system in seconds. They wore clean uniforms and looked important. Jiho and Hana wore dirty work clothes. Other Valoran workers barely looked at them. To these advanced aliens, humans were just cheap labor. Chief Engineer Kilmora waited at the destroyer. He was the head of all maintenance operations. His skin was darker blue than most Valorans, showing his age and experience. He looked down at Jiho with obvious disgust. You are late, Kilmora said in heavily accented English. We are on time, Hana replied in Valoran. Do not speak unless spoken to. Human. Kilmora pointed at the ship. Clean the coolant tanks. Do not touch anything else. Do not look at anything else. Just clean. Jiho nodded and entered the ship. Hana followed him. Once they were alone inside the engine room, Hana made an angry face. He treats us like animals, she said. Let it go, Jiho replied. He was already examining the engine room. His eyes moved across every surface. He noticed scorch marks on a power coupling, fresh welds on a plasma conduit, new parts mixed with old ones. They spent 6 hours cleaning the coolant tanks. It was hot, dirty work. The coolant left sticky residue everywhere. But while Hana scrubbed, Jiho watched and thought. He noticed things. The engine had been repaired recently. Very recently. But some parts looked brand new while others looked old. That was strange for a system that should have been replaced all at once. When they finished, Jiho pulled out a small notebook. It was paper, something Velarans had not used in centuries. He wrote down what he saw. Ship name, date, which parts were new, which were old. What damage he noticed. Why do you write that? Hana asked. Just curious, Jiho said. Over the next 3 weeks, they cleaned 15 different ships. Every day, Jiho wrote in his notebook. He recorded everything he saw. He noticed patterns, but he did not talk about them yet. One evening, they were working late on a frigate. Sparks suddenly flew from a wall panel. Alarms blared. Valoran technicians rushed in, pushing Jiho and Hana aside. The humans watched as the aliens worked frantically to stop a power overload. After the emergency ended, Jiho stayed behind. He placed his hand on the ship's wall. He could feel vibrations through the metal. Something felt wrong, but he could not explain what. "Hana," he said quietly, "I need to see the maintenance logs. All of them. Every ship in this yard." "Those are not for us," Hana said. "We are just cleaners." "I know, but I need them." Hana looked at his face. She saw something there. Determination. The same look he had when he figured out a problem back on Earth. "What did you find?" she asked. "Maybe nothing. Maybe everything." "I won't know until I see those logs," Hana thought for a moment. Then she smiled. "I know someone in the records department. He owes me a favor." 2 days later, Hana brought Jiho a data chip. It contained 8 months of maintenance logs. Thousands of pages of reports. Every repair. Every part replaced. Every test run on every ship. That night, Jiho sat in his small quarters. He printed out the reports. Paper covered his floor, his bed, his walls. He used different colored markers to highlight patterns. Red for engine failures, blue for weapons, green for life support. Outside his window, the stars shone bright. Somewhere in the command center, Admiral Vextar was watching another ship break down. Somewhere in the Empire, accountants were calculating another 7 million credits lost. But in his tiny room, surrounded by paper and data, Jiho was beginning to see something. Something that billions of credits in advanced alien technology had missed. Something simple, he just had to prove it. Jiho spread the papers across the floor of his quarters. Maintenance reports from 6 months covered every surface. Hana sat beside him, helping translate the Valoran technical terms he did not understand. "This ship failed on June 3rd, Jiho said, pointing at a report. "Engine overload." "This one failed June 5th, Hana added. "Weapons malfunction. Different problems. Different ships. But look," Jiho drew a line on his chart. "Both were serviced by the same maintenance team 2 weeks before failure. Maybe that team is doing bad work?" Hana suggested. "That's what I thought too." Jiho pulled out another stack of papers. "But look at these. Team 7, they service ships that also fail. And Team 12, same thing. Every team has failures," Hana frowned. "So it is not the teams. No, it is something else. They worked through the night." Jiho made charts. He drew timelines. He tried to find connections between the failures. Ship age, no pattern. Ship class, no pattern. Which sector of space they patrolled? Nothing. By morning, Jiho's eyes were red from lack of sleep. But he was smiling. "What?" Hana asked. "The maintenance schedule. Look at when ships fail. It is always 2 to 4 weeks after major maintenance." Hana studied the timeline. He was right. Ships that just had big repairs would fail soon after. But that makes no sense. Fresh repairs should make them work better. "Exactly," Jiho said. "So why does the opposite happen?" For 3 days, Jiho followed the Valoran maintenance teams. He watched them work. He stayed quiet and out of the way. The Valoran technicians ignored him, thinking he was just a human laborer too stupid to do real work. The Valoran teams were impressive. They worked fast and efficient. Their scanners could check a whole engine system in minutes. When they found a problem, they fixed it immediately. They followed every safety protocol perfectly. Jiho watched a team replace a plasma regulator. Their scanner said it was suboptimal. The part still worked, but not at peak performance. So they removed it and installed a new one. After the team left, Jiho asked permission to check their work. The supervisor laughed but allowed it. "Make sure you do not break anything, human." Jiho used his own multimeter. The simple tool was ancient compared to Valoran technology, but it worked. He tested the old plasma regulator they had removed. According to his multimeter, the part was fine. It worked perfectly. He tested the new part they installed. Also perfect. So why replace it? Just because it was suboptimal? Jiho made a note in his book. The next day, he watched another team. They replaced 6 different components on a cruiser. All the parts tested fine on his multimeter, but the Valoran scanner said they were degrading and should be replaced before they failed. Smart maintenance. Fix problems before they become disasters. Jiho could not argue with that logic, but something bothered him. He could not figure out what. That night he went back to his papers. He looked at the parts lists. Every ship had parts replaced regularly. The Valorans kept perfect records. They listed every component, every serial number, every manufacturer. Manufacturer Jiho sat up straight.
Hana, she jumped.
She had been dozing in a chair. What is wrong?
The parts.
Where do they come from? What do you mean? Jiho shuffled through papers. Look, this destroyer had a plasma conduit from Cortec Industries. This cruiser had one from Stellar Components. This frigate had one from Veltec Manufacturing. So, the Empire buys parts from many suppliers. That is normal? Yes, but look at this ship. Jiho found another report. It had repairs in March. They replaced the conduit with a Cortec part. Then in May, they replaced another section with a Stellar Components part. Then in July, Veltec. All the same type of part, just different makers. Different makers mean different factories. Different designs. Sure, they all meet the same standards. They all work the same way. But are they exactly the same? Hana thought about it. You think mixing parts from different companies causes problems? Maybe. I need to check something. The next morning, Jiho made an unusual request. He asked Chief Engineer Killamora for permission to examine some old parts. The parts that had been replaced but were not broken. Killamora looked at him like he was insane. Why would a human cleaner want old parts? I am curious about Valoran technology, Jiho said through Hana. I want to learn. The chief engineer laughed. Learn? You? Fine, take the junk. Maybe you can use it for decorations. Jiho collected 20 different components, all plasma regulators, all the same type, but from 5 different manufacturers. He brought them to his quarters and started testing. On his basic oscilloscope, he checked each part individually. They all worked. They all produced the right output. According to specifications, they were identical, but when Jiho looked closer, he saw tiny differences. The frequency of the plasma flow varied slightly between manufacturers. Not enough to matter normally. The parts still met galactic standards, but there were differences. He set up a test circuit. He connected 2 regulators from the same manufacturer. Perfect harmony. The frequencies matched. The system was stable. Then he replaced one regulator with one from a different manufacturer. At first, everything looked fine, but after running for an hour, he saw interference. The different frequencies created small fluctuations. Not enough to cause immediate failure, but the fluctuations added stress to other components. Now he connected 3 regulators, one from each manufacturer. The interference got worse. Hana, look at this. Jiho showed her the oscilloscope reading. See these waves? They should be smooth. But mixing parts from different makers creates these spikes. But the parts all work. They meet the standards. Individually, yes. But together, they fight each other. Imagine singers in a choir. Everyone sings the right note. But some sing high, some sing low. It sounds wrong. And Valoran ships have parts from dozens of manufacturers. Hundreds, Jiho corrected. I checked the supply records. The Empire buys from every major supplier in the galaxy. For good reason, too. They get better prices. They are not dependent on one company. It makes sense economically. But the ships break down. Because their maintenance teams replace parts all the time. Preventive maintenance. Replace before failure. Also smart. But every time they replace a part, they install whatever is in stock. Could be any manufacturer. Hana's eyes widened. So over time, ships become mixtures of different parts. Right. And those parts, while perfect individually, create interference together. The Valoran diagnostic tools test each component separately. They never check how the parts interact as a complete system, because they assume if each part is perfect, the system is perfect. Exactly. But they are wrong, Jiho sat back. He had found the problem. Now he had to prove it to people who thought humans were primitive idiots. We need to see Admiral Vextar, Jiho said. Hana laughed. The Admiral? Jiho, we are cleaners. We cannot just walk into the Admiral's office. Then we find someone who can get us in. Everyone will think we are crazy. Maybe. But I am right. I know I'm right. Jiho looked at his oscilloscope. The simple machine showed a truth that billion-credit Valoran scanners missed. Someone has to listen, Hana sighed. She knew that look on his face. Once Jiho was certain about something, he would not stop until he proved it. Okay, she said. I will try. But do not expect much. Getting a meeting with Admiral Vextar took 2 weeks. Hana talked to people who talked to other people. She called in every favor she had. Most Velerans laughed at her. A human cleaner wanted to speak with the Admiral about fleet maintenance. Ridiculous, but Admiral Vextar was desperate. Another 3 ships had failed that week. The 7 million credits daily loss continued. His superiors in the Empire were losing patience. When he heard a human claim to know the problem, he was curious enough to grant 15 minutes. Chief Engineer Kilmora tried to stop the meeting. "Admiral, this is foolish. A primitive human cannot know what our best engineers do not." 15 minutes, Vextar said firmly. If our best engineers had solved this, we would not be having this conversation. Jiho entered the Admiral's office carrying his old toolbox. Hana walked beside him, nervous but trying not to show it. The office was huge, with windows showing the vast shipyard and the gas giant beyond. Admiral Vextar sat behind a desk made of what looked like crystal. His forearms rested on the surface. His eyes studied the 2 humans carefully. "You have 15 minutes, the Admiral said. "Make them count." Chief Engineer Kilmora stood in the corner, his skin dark with anger. Jiho put his toolbox on the desk. He pulled out his notebook. "Admiral, may I ask a question first?" Vextar gestured for him to continue. "Your engineers test every component individually, correct?" "Of course. Our diagnostic scanners are the most advanced in the galaxy. And when a part tests as suboptimal, you replace it?" "Yes, preventive maintenance. We fix problems before they cause failures." "And you buy parts from many different suppliers?" The Admiral looked confused. "Yes, standard practice for any large fleet. We have contracts with manufacturers across 12 star systems. It ensures competitive pricing and supply security." Jiho nodded. "All good decisions. Smart decisions. But together they create the problem." Kilmora stepped forward. "Nonsense. Our parts meet galactic standards. Our maintenance procedures are textbook perfect. You insult us with these primitive—" "Let him speak," Vextar said. Jiho opened his toolbox. He pulled out 2 plasma regulators. Both were certified components, both brand new. "These parts both work perfectly," Jiho said. "Your scanners would approve both. They meet all specifications, but they are from different manufacturers. Watch." He pulled out his old oscilloscope. The machine looked ancient compared to the sleek Valoran technology in the office. But when Jiho connected the first regulator, it showed clear readings. "This is from Cortec Industries," Jiho explained. "See the frequency? Steady, clean, perfect." He disconnected it and connected the second regulator. Again, perfect readings. "This is from Stellar Components. Also perfect. Also meets every standard." Then Jiho did something the Valoran engineers never did. He connected both regulators to the same circuit. The oscilloscope showed something different now. The waves were not smooth. Small spikes appeared. Interference patterns. Individually perfect. But together they create interference, not much. Not enough to show up on your scanners when testing each part alone, but enough to stress other components over time. Vextar leaned forward. "Show me more." Jiho pulled out his notebook. He had pages of data, all written by hand. "Your ships have hundreds of components. Every time you do maintenance, you replace parts. But you use whatever's in stock. Sometimes Cortec, sometimes Stellar, sometimes Veltec or a dozen other suppliers. Over months, your ships become mixtures. Part A from one maker, Part B from another. Each part tests fine individually, but together they create harmonic interference." Hana translated technical terms when needed. She could see the Admiral was listening carefully now. "Your diagnostic tools are very advanced," Jiho continued. "Too advanced, maybe. They test everything separately. They never test how parts work together as a complete system. They assume if each piece is perfect, the whole is perfect. But that is not true?" Vextar asked. "Not when the pieces come from different sources." Jiho set up another demonstration. He showed how 3 regulators from the same manufacturer worked in perfect harmony. Then he showed how 3 from different makers created increasing interference. "Think of it like music," Jiho said. "Every musician plays the right notes. But if some instruments are tuned slightly different, it sounds wrong. Your ships are like orchestras where every instrument is from a different maker." Chief Engineer Kilmora stared at the oscilloscope. His skin color shifted from anger dark to confusion pale. "But our standards ensure compatibility." "On paper, yes," Jiho agreed. "In reality, there are always tiny variations. Too small to matter, usually. But your aggressive maintenance schedule means you replace parts constantly. Every repair adds more variation. Over time, it builds up. The failures seem random because they depend on which specific combination of parts a ship has. And that combination changes every time you do maintenance. Admiral Vextar stood and walked to the window. He looked at the ships in the dock. Expensive warships, the pride of the Empire, falling apart for no reason anyone could find. Why did none of our engineers see this? He asked quietly. Jiho chose his words carefully. Because your engineers are too good. They trust their advanced tools. They follow perfect procedures. They do everything right according to modern galactic standards. But sometimes the old ways work better. Testing by hand, feeling the system, using simple tools that show you basic truths. Kilmora could not stay silent. This is ridiculous. You suggest we abandon centuries of advancement, go back to primitive methods? No, Jiho said. I suggest you add the old methods to the new. Your advanced scanners are amazing, but use them together with simple tests. Check not just individual parts, but how they work together. And match manufacturers. When you replace a part, use the same brand as the original. Keep systems consistent. The Admiral turned around. Can you prove this? Not with a desktop test, with a real ship. Give me one ship, Jiho said. Let me retrofit it. If I am wrong, you lose nothing. If I am right, you save 7 million credits per day. Vextar looked at the oscilloscope. A 200-year-old human technology, showing something billion credit Velarin scanners missed. He thought about his failing fleet, his shrinking budget, his superiors demanding answers. Chief Engineer, he said to Kilmora, give this human the frigate Telvarin. Let him implement his theories. Kilmora's skin went almost black with rage. Admiral, I must protest, and your protest is noted. But we have tried everything else. If a human cleaner can solve what our best minds cannot, then perhaps we should listen. Vextar looked at Jiho. You have 1 month. Make it work, Jiho nodded. Yes, sir. As they left the office, Hana whispered, 1 month? Can you do it? I have to, Jiho replied. He carried his battered toolbox with pride now. Inside were simple tools that would save an empire. Behind them, Admiral Vextar stood alone in his office. He looked at his own hands. 4 arms that could operate the most complex controls. He commanded a fleet with technology humans could barely understand. Yet a human with a basic oscilloscope had seen what he missed. Maybe, the Admiral thought, advancement was not always about moving forward. Sometimes it was about remembering where you came from. The frigate Telvarin sat in Dock Bay 12. It was a small warship only 60 meters long with a crew of 30. For the past year it had suffered constant problems, engine failures, weapon glitches, life support issues. It was perfect for Jiho's test. Chief Engineer Kilmora assigned the worst maintenance team to help Jiho, 5 Valoran technicians who had been disciplined for various infractions. The message was clear, this project was not important, but Jiho did not complain. He met his new team in the frigate's engine room. My name is Jiho, he said through Hana's translation. I know you do not want to be here. I know you think this is a waste of time, but please give me a chance. The Valoran technicians said nothing. One of them, named Rixva, crossed 2 of his 4 arms. His skin showed the pale color of skepticism. We will start with a complete diagnostic, Jiho said, but not with your standard scanners. We use these. He opened his toolbox and pulled out oscilloscopes, multimeters, and other simple tools. The Valorans stared. These are antiques, Rixva said. We have not used such primitive equipment in centuries. I know. But today you learn again. For the first 3 days, Jiho taught them how to use the basic tools, how to read an oscilloscope, how to test voltage with a multimeter, how to use their own senses to check connections. The Valorans were frustrated. They were trained professionals, forced to use caveman technology by a human who should be cleaning toilets. But Admiral's orders were absolute. Slowly, something changed. Rixva was testing a power coupling with a multimeter. This reading is different from what my scanner showed, he said, surprised. What does your scanner say? Jiho asked. It says the coupling is optimal, but this device shows fluctuation in the current. So which one is right? Rixva thought about it. The multimeter measures directly. The scanner measures through multiple layers of ship systems. He paused. The multimeter is right. Now you understand, Jiho said with a smile. They mapped every component on the Telvarin. Jiho created a detailed chart showing which parts came from which manufacturers. The result was chaos. The engine had regulators from 4 different makers. The weapons had capacitors from 6 suppliers. Nothing matched. "This ship is a mess," said another technician named Daltex. "Most ships in the fleet probably look like this," Jiho replied. "Now we fix it." His plan was simple but time-consuming. They would test each system as a whole, not just individual parts. When they found interference patterns, they would replace mismatched components with ones from the same manufacturer. They started with the engine room. Using oscilloscopes, they identified 3 regulators that created interference. All 3 worked fine individually, but together they made the engine unstable. Jiho checked the supply records. He found replacement regulators from the same manufacturer as the ship's primary systems. They installed the new parts and tested again. The interference disappeared. "It worked," Rixiva said quietly. His skin showed surprise yellow. "Of course it worked," Jiho said. "Now 20 more systems to go." Word spread through the shipyard. The human was actually doing something. Other maintenance teams stopped by to watch. Most came to mock, but some stayed to observe. Jiho welcomed everyone. He showed them his methods. He explained the theory. Some Velerans left shaking their heads. Others stayed and asked questions. One senior technician named Pelcor watched for a whole day. At the end, he approached Jiho. "I have worked on ships for 30 years, Pelcor said. I always trusted my scanners completely. I never thought to question them." "Scanners are excellent tools," Jiho said. "But they are just tools. Sometimes you need to use your hands. Feel the vibrations. Listen to the sounds. Your species built ships for centuries before you had advanced scanners. That knowledge is still valuable." Pelcor nodded slowly. "May I help?" Of course, by the second week, Jiho's team had grown. More technicians volunteered to work on the Talvaran project. Even Chief Engineer Kilmora came to observe, though he would not admit interest. Jiho taught them all his methods. He showed them how to test system integration, how to match manufacturers, how to feel when something was wrong even if scanners said everything was fine. One evening, Daltex was working on a weapons array. He put his hand on the housing and frowned. "Something is wrong," he said. "What do your scanners show?" Jiho asked. "All optimal, but I feel odd vibrations." Then investigate. Daltex used a multimeter and oscilloscope. After 20 minutes, he found a capacitor from a mismatched manufacturer. The scanners had not flagged it because it tested fine individually, but it created subtle interference with neighboring components. "I found it," Daltex said, his skin bright with excitement green. Jiho clapped him on the shoulder. "Good work. You are learning to listen to the ship." The work was slow. Every system had to be checked. Every component had to be documented. Mismatched parts had to be replaced. But gradually the Talvaran became consistent. Jiho created a master list showing every component and its manufacturer. "From now on," he told the team, "when you replace anything on this ship, check this list. Use the same manufacturer. Keep the ship consistent." During the 3rd week, they ran into a problem. The life support system needed a specific valve replaced. But the original manufacturer had gone out of business 5 years ago. "What do we do?" Rixiva asked. Jiho thought about it. "We replaced the entire section with matched components from an available manufacturer. Better to have a consistent system from a different maker than a mixed system." They spent 4 days retrofitting the life support. More work than just replacing one valve, but the system became stable and consistent. Finally, after 26 days, the Talvaran was ready. Every system had been checked. Every component was matched. The ship was no longer a mixture of random parts. It was a coordinated whole. "Time for the test," Jiho said. They powered up the frigate. All systems showed green. Jiho and his team used both advanced scanners and simple tools to check everything. Perfect harmony. No interference. No fluctuations. The Talvaran left the dock for space trials. Admiral Vextar watched from the command center. Chief Engineer Kilmora stood beside him. Neither spoke. The frigate ran through every test. Full engine power, weapons fire, emergency maneuvers, life support under stress. Everything worked flawlessly. 1 week of trials. No failures 2 weeks. No failures a month of active patrol duty. Not a single unexpected problem. In the shipyard cantina, the maintenance crews gathered. They were talking about the Talvaran, about the humans' methods, about how simple tools found problems their scanners missed. Rixiva sat at Jiho's table. He set down his drink and looked at the human. "Before I thought I knew how to maintain ships," Rixiva said in broken English. You showed me I only knew how to follow procedures. You taught me to understand ships, to listen to them, not just see numbers on display." He paused. "Thank you." Other technicians at nearby tables nodded in agreement. Even those who had mocked Jiho at first now showed respect. Jiho felt something warm in his chest. Not pride exactly, more like satisfaction. He had helped. He had taught. He had made a difference. "You learned fast," Jiho said to Rixiva. "You are all good technicians. You just needed to remember old wisdom." Across the shipyard, Admiral Vextar looked at reports from the Talviran. 6 weeks of operation, 0 failures. The ship that had been constantly broken was now the most reliable vessel in the fleet. He made a decision. He called Chief Engineer Kilmora to his office. "Implement the humans' procedures across the entire fleet," Vextar ordered. Kilmora's skin shifted colors, but he nodded. "Yes, Admiral, the revolution had begun." 6 months passed like a dream. The Northern Fleet transformed. Ship by ship, the Valoran maintenance teams implemented Jiho's methods. They tested systems as complete units. They matched manufacturers. They used simple tools alongside their advanced scanners. They learned to listen to their ships again. The results were undeniable. The daily 7 million credit loss dropped to almost nothing. Ships that had been constantly breaking down became reliable. Captains who had feared combat because their vessels might fail now sailed confidently into patrol sectors. Admiral Vextar stood in the command center, watching his fleet prepare for departure. 200 warships all fully operational. 6 months ago, he would have been lucky to field 50 working vessels. Now his entire fleet was ready for action. "The Empire has noticed," said his assistant. "They want to know how you fixed the problem." Vextar smiled, something Valorans rarely did. "Tell them we remembered how to be mechanics instead of just technicians." In the shipyard's main hall, a ceremony was taking place. Hundreds of Velerans gathered, along with a small group of humans. At the center stood Jiho, still wearing his oil-stained work coveralls. He had refused to wear a formal uniform. "Jiho of Earth," Admiral Vextar announced. "You came to us as a laborer. You leave as a teacher. You save this fleet not with advanced technology, but with wisdom. Today, the Valoran Empire awards you the Medal of Technical Merit." The medal was a crystal disc that floated in an energy field. It was the highest honor the Empire gave to non-military personnel. In the Empire's 1,000-year history, it had been awarded only 43 times. Never to a non-Valoran until now. Jiho accepted the medal. Through Hana's translation, he gave a short speech. "I did not do this alone. Rixiva, Daltex, Pelcor, and many others worked hard. They were willing to learn. That is true wisdom. Not thinking you know everything, but being open to new ideas. Thank you for listening to a human cleaner." The Velerans in the crowd showed respect blue in their skin. Some, like Rixiva, showed friendship green. Even Chief Engineer Kilmora, standing at the back, had shifted from his usual dark colors to something lighter. Acceptance, perhaps. After the ceremony, representatives from other Veleran fleets approached Jiho. The Southern Fleet wanted him to train their teams. The Eastern Armada offered him a senior consultant position. The home defense units requested his protocols. Jiho politely declined most offers. "I am not a consultant," he said. "I am a mechanic. I fix things with my hands. I teach people, but I do not sit in offices." However, he agreed to create training materials. He worked with Hana to write manuals in simple language. They made videos showing his techniques. They developed a curriculum that any maintenance team could follow. The impact spread beyond the Valoran Empire. Word traveled through the galaxy. Other species heard about the human who solved an impossible problem with basic tools and common sense. The Kryn Confederation contacted Earth. They had similar issues with their transport ships. Could they hire human engineers? The Thex Union, a trading alliance of 6 species, requested human mechanics for their freight fleet. Even the advanced Eldari, who had been in space for 10,000 years, sent a delegation to study human maintenance methods. Earth's government was stunned. For a year after first contact, humans had been seen as primitive newcomers, cheap labor, a source of raw materials. Now suddenly human expertise was valuable. Contracts flooded in. Earth's economy, which had been struggling, began to grow. Unemployed engineers and mechanics found work across the galaxy. Technical schools expanded their programs. Human-style practical maintenance became a selling point. Not everyone was happy about this. Some alien engineers felt insulted. Some human workers became arrogant, thinking they were better than everyone else. Jiho addressed these concerns in an interview that was broadcast across multiple star systems. "Humans are not better than other species," he said. "We just have a different perspective. We are new to space. We have not forgotten the basics because we still use them every day. Other species advance so much they forgot simple truths. But they can remember. I proved that. The Valorans learned fast once they were willing. Everyone has something to teach. Everyone has something to learn. That is what makes cooperation valuable." Back at the shipyard, Jiho set up a small training center. He taught mixed classes of different species. Young Valoran technicians learned beside Kryn engineers and human apprentices. They all used the same simple tools. They all learned the same methods. Hana managed the program. She had become the head of the human liaison office at the shipyard. She coordinated between species, translated technical concepts, and made sure everyone communicated well. One day, a young Valoran student named Tixra approached Jiho after class. "Master Jiho, I have a question. I am not a master, just a mechanic. What is your question?" "Why did our advanced diagnostics fail? Our technology is good. Our engineers are smart, but we miss something simple. How?" Jiho thought about how to answer. "Your technology is excellent. Your engineers are brilliant. But sometimes being too advanced is a problem. You trust your tools completely. You forget to trust yourself." He picked up an oscilloscope. "This machine is 200 years old by human standards, maybe ancient by yours. It cannot do 1,000 things. It does one thing. It shows waves. Simple, direct. Because it is simple, you understand exactly what it tells you. Your advanced scanners do 1,000 things. They give you complete data. But sometimes all that data hides the simple truth. You see numbers but miss the meaning." Tixra's skin showed understanding yellow. "So we should use simple tools?" "No, use both. Use your advanced scanners for complex analysis, but also use simple tools to check basic truths. Most importantly, use your own senses. Feel the vibrations. Listen to the sounds. Trust your experience." The student nodded and returned to his workstation. Jiho watched him go with satisfaction. A year after solving the crisis, Jiho decided to return to Earth. He had trained enough instructors to continue his work. His methods were established. His job was done. Admiral Vextar hosted a farewell dinner. "You changed this fleet," the Admiral said. "You changed this empire. Will you not stay?" "My work here is finished," Jiho replied. "But Earth needs teachers now. Many humans are going into space. They need to learn how to work with other species. I can teach them." "You will always be welcome here," Vexitar said. "The Northern Fleet considers you an honorary member." On his last day, Jiho walked through the shipyard one final time. He saw Valoran technicians using oscilloscopes alongside their advanced scanners. He saw mixed species teams working together. He saw ships that were maintained with both high technology and common sense. Rixva found him in Dock Bay 12, where the Talvran was preparing for departure. "The first ship you fixed," Rixva said. "It still runs perfectly. No failures in over a year." "Because you maintain it well," Jiho replied. "Because you taught us how." Rixva extended 2 of his forearms in the Valoran gesture of respect. "Safe travels, teacher." Jiho shook the offered hands. "You were a good student. You will be a better teacher." On the transport ship back to Earth, Jiho sat by a window. He watched the shipyard grow smaller in the distance. Beyond it, the Northern Fleet sailed in perfect formation. 200 warships, all operational, all reliable. Hana sat beside him. "Do you think they will remember your lessons?" "Yes, because I did not just fix their ships. I taught them to think differently. That is the lesson that lasts. What will you do on Earth? Open a school. Teach the next generation. We have a place in this galaxy now. Not as the strongest, not as the smartest, but as the ones who remember the basics. That is valuable." The transport jumped to faster than light speed. Stars blurred past the window. Somewhere in those stars, students were learning Jiho's methods. Engineers were rediscovering simple truths. Different species were working together, teaching each other. A human mechanic with a battered toolbox had changed the galaxy. Not through war or politics or great inventions, just by remembering that sometimes the simplest answer is the right one, and the best tool is not always the most advanced one. Sometimes, it is just a pair of skilled hands and a willingness to learn. Years later, Historians would study the harmonic crisis in military academies across the galaxy. They would analyze the technical details, the economic impact, the political consequences, but they would also note something else. The crisis taught the galaxy a lesson about wisdom. That advancement does not mean abandoning the basics. That technology should serve understanding, not replace it. That every species, no matter how primitive they seem, has something valuable to offer. And they would remember Jiho, not as a hero, not as a genius, just as a mechanic who knew his job and did it well. That was enough. It was more than enough.